I'm Lisa Anderson, president of LMA Consulting Group and host of Supply Chain Chats. And I'm thrilled to be here today with Lorenz Pallhuber. Is that correct, Lorenz?
That is right. I know it's a bit of a tricky one. I apologize.
No, it's great. Lorenz, I'm very excited because Lorenz has spent his career at McKinsey advising Fortune 500 companies on AI, supply chain, and procurement. And he is a co-founder of Didero, which focuses on AI systems that are used across complex operational environments. So it's quite appropriate to our client base. And so I'm thrilled to, learn more about Agentic AI for procurement and procure to pay and how we can better utilize it to make our clients' lives more efficient. With that said, maybe we could just start with a basic, and then we'll go into an issue that I'm seeing across clients. And that is, we all kind of know what AI is, but what do you mean when you say Agentic AI?
Absolutely. It's nice to see you, Lisa. Thank you very much for having me on. I know we've made your life much harder by picking names both for myself and the company that are hard to pronounce. So I apologize for that. But now that we're through the worst, so I'm one of three co-founders. My background, as you mentioned, is at McKinsey, where I helped large global enterprises with supply chain and procurement technology questions. My co-founder, Tim, led a 25-person supply chain and procurement team in a manufacturing environment. And he just, was shell-shocked by just how his team was forced to be really, reactive and spend so much time just updating their ERP and doing pretty tactical things when he thought they should really be going out and running sourcing events and negotiating with vendors and doing all the strategic stuff. But in supply chain, as all of you know, it's fire after fire after fire. So our mission as a business is to leverage AI to make teams' life easier, but taking on really no regret tactical procurement tasks that nobody will be fighting for. And so that's really the goal. With a third co-founder, Tom, who's the AI brain behind what we're doing. We all went to Stanford together, and then Tom has got about 20 years experience building great AI software, raised multiple hundreds of millions of dollars from Google and others for that. And now we built Didero, which has been an incredible journey. We work primarily with manufacturers, distributors, physical goods-driven businesses to help them automate routine, tactical workflows on top of email and their ERP. What's Agentic AI? Great question. It's a buzzword. It is just another way to say AI that can take action. When you think about ChatGPT or tools like that, you type in a question, you get an answer. What makes it an agent is the ability to go and take actions on behalf of our users. Reason based on context and information, decide what to do next, formulate an answer, and then go and do something for the user. So it's no longer passive and just gives you answers, but we actually create a workflow where the agent can go and take some action. In our context, that is often write an email to a vendor, or go and update the ERP, or go and check a website and pull information back. And so it's all about triggers and workflows that we define, having this AI truly reason to decide what to do next, and then taking an action based on the context and information that the system has. And that's very different from traditional software and just slapping AI on something that's already there. It's about creating a truly AI-first software that sits on top of what people have in place and just automates these routine tactical tasks for them.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's, like you said, it's in a way, it's a buzzword that I've seen coming up quite a bit, but the old view of AI is still relevant from an automation standpoint in a lot of manufacturing environments, just for the audience's sake here. But obviously, the more you can get it to do for you and do mundane tasks, the better. Speaking of which, from when we're thinking about procurement, one of the biggest issues there's always a lot of issues at clients, but one of the biggest issues is, like you said, there's like a large manual manual workload in supply chain overall. And one of them is that you really have to keep track of when your Your suppliers are getting constantly pushing orders out, pulling them in, like you have to expedite. MRP changes messages. Your SIOP program, sales inventory operations planning, is saying that you need to adjust for changing customer conditions. And a lot of times the procurement process is very manual as far as like making all these updates. So does your, does
Yeah.
your expertise in AI for procurement, how can we utilize AI to help with that?
Yeah. Well, you bring up a great point because this is exactly the sort of workflow that AI enabled that was previously not really automatable, right? One of the challenges with exactly the process you're describing, the PO wrangling, as you might want to call it, right? All of the tactical PO tasks of checking in and order acknowledgements and delivery dates. That's all in natural language. It happens, via email. It happens in PDFs, and it's unstructured. And it's been really, really hard for machines before the latest wave of AI technology came about to make sense of that information and do anything with it because it comes in so many formats and shapes, especially for mid-size, upper, smaller, mid-market companies that don't have the buying power to force their vendors to communicate with them in extremely standardized ways. So that's where
Right.
we see
Like
even
an
more.
EDI or something.
Yeah, EDI, and there's many downsides to EDI on top of that. But even most of the folks we work with, they have no EDI at all. If they have EDI, they have it with a couple of suppliers, but not all of them.
Or
And it's just
blockchain
kind of
maybe or something, but that's pretty
exactly.
extreme. Not very many clients at all use blockchain because it's quite the endeavor.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of time on both ends, and it only really makes sense for, big
Right.
folks to talk to other, kind of major suppliers that they work with to set that up in the first place. So everything ends up in emails, sometimes phone calls, of course. And this is really where AI can shine, right? These
Maybe
are these
supplier
tactical
portals too.
supplier
I don't
portals,
know, maybe
absolutely.
I don't want to distract from your answer, but like once you like I'm interested in the if it does something with supplier portals as well, but go ahead and tell us
Yeah, we can
about
talk
it.
about that. Yeah, anyway, so the process you described around the PO lifecycle is a really great example. It's a lot of manual work. It's a lot to keep track of. It all happens in this unstructured format, and this is where AI can shine. And that's actually the very first workflow that we ever launched was this PO lifecycle management using Agentic AI. So what happens in practice is that our customers set up a email account for the agent and give it access to their ERP. And now the agent takes on a lot of these tactical procurement workflows in natural language. So it will respond to a vendor and say, hey, you haven't sent us this document, you haven't updated us on this delivery, you haven't set an order acknowledgement, the order acknowledgement doesn't match the PO. Can you please explain, the delivery address seems to be wrong. So these like very time consuming, high volume tasks is exactly what we focus on. And this is where the AI can go into its work. We have a task management system for escalations and exceptions. So when you think about the end user experience of an agentic system is, hey, 95% runs in the background for your team. You kind of never really see it. When there are exceptions, escalations, things where we've defined together that a human should look at them and should review a task before the AI takes an action, your team gets a task that has the right context information for your team to take the right action and tell the agent what to do. So it's really about getting through those exceptions, but you move away from managing everything to only managing exceptions and escalations. But a lot of it just happens with the agent kind of interacting in the background. And most of the folks we work with over time take some of those guardrails off as they get more comfortable with the AI taking actions for them. So you can start with more control, and then over a couple of weeks or months, as you see the AI working, they say, "Hey, I wanted to approve this type of task. I'm totally fine for the AI just to do this automatically going forward." And that's something we can do, very easily. Where we start with more oversight, and then as people gain confidence in what the AI is doing for them, we can remove some of those so that we can take more weight of those teams' shoulders.
Sure, sure. It's like an MRP type of a
Yeah,
process in the sense that, you want to be dealing in the exceptions, the 80/20, and let MRP do the the heavy lifting. I mean,
That's right.
in essence, it's the same concept you're describing here.
Yeah.
I'm
The
wondering
real,
about both
maybe the one other
directions.
thing I would want to add here is that the real unlock again is the fact that you can just do it in a lightweight way on top of systems people already have, right? Nobody wants to switch their ERP. Nobody wants
Right.
to change their system of record. This is all about just removing the hours people spend updating those systems and doing this very tactical work. I actually had a question for you briefly, if you don't mind.
Sure, sure.
I know you're an incredible expert in the SIOP process, and it's one of the things you advise a lot of businesses on. Um, Obviously, a lot of the things that we do, PO lifecycle management, AP, sourcing and quoting,
Mhm.
where we have our agents,
Yep.
deployed with more than 50 companies in the US at the moment. Um, some of the work can really help the SIOP process, right? Better data hygiene, making sure information is updated. That's something that very often kind of is last on people's to-do list, right? And so garbage in, garbage out. Like, what are the hopes you have from AI for the SIOP process, and how might it help address some of the challenges you have later on when you try to work with your clients on fixing those issues?
Well, actually, I think that there are many aspects of the SIOP process and requiring there's like software and AI type assistance you can get on many aspects of the SIOP process. So there's demand, capacity planning, purchasing. But since we're talking about procurement, purchasing, like I would say one of the things that comes up pretty frequently in a SIOP process is you're looking at the strategy side of things. So you're saying, like, do I not have enough capacity to meet my needs for, like, I don't know, quarter two or quarter three? Although I'm going to bring additional capacity online. So can I find an offload supplier and source them to meet certain specifications for, I don't know, a quarter or half a year or something. And so it sounds like you'll have to like tell us more about it, but it sounds like it would, we could probably use some AI capabilities to help us find some places to quote or to like potentially source. Also, as we have changing customer conditions, we want to like provide some of those suggestions to push in or push out orders or change order sizes to the procurement base. And so that was where I was going to go next. Actually, is does or can AI go in both directions? I think it can, but like I've seen some of the modern ERP systems will take an email from like a customer, but in this case, like a supplier, let's say, and say, the email says like, oh, my order is going to be a week late for XYZ reason. And so would it be able to take that kind of information and update ERP? Let's start there. Is that something that the
Yeah,
system would
absolutely.
like, or that
Those are
agentic
the
AI could do?
exact kind of tasks, right, where the agent will just execute some of these very routine tasks. We define, hey, what do you want? What is acceptable to you? What do you want the system to just do automatically? Versus what are the things where you should go and ask one of the buyers for their advice? So
Well, yeah,
that,
I
of
agree.
course,
Because I was going to say the same is like, I don't know. Could you say what I'd probably want if I was in that position is saying, can you summarize, I guess, give me a list of all the, push-ins or pull-outs that the suppliers have provided and so that I can approve them before it just updates my system, if you will. Because I
exactly.
may push back on the supplier, obviously, if they're pushing back. But I do want a more realistic date in the system.
That's right. So what we can define is, and we can do this in a supplier by supplier level to say, hey, if the new delivery date is more than X days in the future, bring it to my attention, and then we would pre-draft an email that the user can send straight from our user interface that they can always edit if they would like, but they can just send it from there and say, hey, why is this delayed? This is a super important order, whatever it might be. So if it falls within a tolerance threshold, we're okay. The agent goes and executes the tasks. If it falls above a certain tolerance threshold, somebody from the team would review it and decide what to do. In some cases, maybe they just want to accept it. It's nothing we can do. That's fine. In the other cases, we want to make the next action as easy as possible. So hey, I accept this, go and update the ERP for me. So all of these additional tasks, people can just breeze through their to-dos. You talked a little bit about the finding another supplier and how that can be really important in the SIOP process. That's another thing where AI can do I think really can do really cool things. So we talked a bit about the PO process, which is where we started. The two other
I have one
areas
more
that we,
question on the PO
yeah,
before we move on, if that's okay. So,
please.
like, that's like bringing, like information that the supplier is sending us and better updating or more timely and automation of updating ERP to the degree within the guidelines, which, by the way, I would ask, since you've been working in this area, I would think that the heavy lifting here to make AI really work for you, because I'm sure that there's like tons of examples that companies can provide of like, oh, well, AI didn't help me because it was giving me junk. But basically, that's probably because you have to work hard, I assume, at getting your guidelines and your qualifications and like, your processes intact so that it can follow those processes and guidelines in a way that makes sense. Because otherwise it probably would update the system with things that don't make sense and or provide way too many emails and be annoying, I suppose. Do you find that to be true, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we find that that can be a problem if people try to utilize generalist tools that aren't specifically built for specific workflows. So with AI, we have a whole engineering team of very expensive AI engineers here in New York that
That
spend
that
all
they are.
day, every
I mean, we
day.
heard the stories about what like Meta pays for
I
like some
know.
engineers, so it's
I
kind of
know,
crazy.
exactly. It is wild. And so we have a whole team of really incredible people working on just, kind of the procurement workflows that we touch. And
So you specialize in that area,
we
and then what you're
specialize and we
saying
create a
is
great user experience specifically for those areas. And you create
right, right.
predictability, right? Because if
Okay.
you just try to do this Microsoft Copilot, good luck. Because it's not specialist, right? How do you manage exceptions? How do you manage escalations? How do you reassign tasks between different team members? How do you create proactivity in the process? How do you make sure that the system doesn't get updated if the information is below a certain tolerance threshold? How do you make sure that the system has the right context at the right time to make the best decision? And those systems are really hard to build, and you kind of need to build them for specific tasks. And so working with these generalist tools, usually, yeah, that's the problem. You get to, maybe 50% task completion, but then it's more work than it was before because you now have to go and check the work of the AI. And
So I
um,
think what you're saying is like make sure that as you're looking at going down the AI path, don't get carried away too much trying to use like a chat GPT to do everything. I mean, it's got its use. But basically, if some of the more specialist tools will build in the 80/20 that makes sense for that particular topic area is what I think I'm hearing you say. So that part would be definitely advantageous. But I think that what I'm also saying is even if you do that, now tell me if you don't agree with this, but from a process side, in working with clients, I think a lot of them like they have some fly by the seat of your pants kind of processes in place at times, and so in a way, it'll force you to say what should we do in this situation, and you have to build these guidelines. So like it's not like that will take forever or anything, but it would be worth it because then you can better utilize your high skilled resources to do more of the type of work that would provide a better customer experience, and more profitability. Is I think what is that? Do you agree with that?
that was
Summary?
a great summary. And in practice, I think most people find that it doesn't actually take them that long to summarize the key things that happen, right? They're the same
Right. I
15
mean, in
things that
purchase,
keep happening and that make up 95% of, exceptions. And that's really what we need to work on. But, and there's always these edge cases, and that's exactly where human expertise is needed and has never been more important. It's just making
right.
sure that the team has the time to focus on those things. I think this brings up another interesting point because I think people are sometimes worried about, do we have the organizational capacity? to deal with this. This is going to take so much time to come up with all these rules and test this out. My advice to people is generally start with one thing and
Yeah.
then, one no regret use case, and then you tackle the next, and then you tackle the next. Don't try to come up with some grand strategy or plan, implement 15 things at the same time. Like, what is what? And this is why we started with PO management, right? It's just a no
Right.
regret use case for pretty much everyone I talk to. Nobody is like, oh, this is not a problem. Like, people love getting up in the morning and updating SAP. Nobody's ever said, and so start with something that's like tactical, not too expensive. Try it out. If it works, you can kind of knock off workflow by workflow, but you don't have to do everything at the same time. And so that's
Right.
another way to say it doesn't have to be an organizational distraction for you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree because I have clients all the time saying, I'm not sure if I'm ready to implement PSYOP yet. And I'm like, well, we should be moving forward with something because every company needs to have some picture of their demand. Don't wait for perfection,
Yeah.
but some idea of what you're thinking is coming down the pipe. And then you figure out how many, who do I need? How many people do I need? Do I need equipment? I mean, you should do some base level of that. Don't wait for perfection because could take you years. But
Yeah. And then you don't
your
do
data doesn't
anything.
have to be perfect. None of that has
Yeah.
to be true. But we find that, like you said, an area, one thing to start with. You do a pilot, you see, can we come out directionally correct? No perfection needs to be had here. And then, like you said, you can gain some real good traction. So we see the same in the SIOP world. So I totally agree with you. So I think folks should think like use uncommon common sense a bit.
Yeah,
And
and
the
not
other
making a
question,
decision is always expensive too, right? I think that
yeah,
that's one of the most important lessons I think in life, right? If you're not making a decision, you're also making a decision. And
yeah,
if you're
that's
not
true.
doing anything, there's a cost to that too. And so I think people sometimes overthink. And as a startup founder, that is like one of the quintessential battles of my day. You have so many things to do, so many new things, so many competing priorities. And yeah, you can't get perfect, get in the way. If I over agonize over every marketing message I put out or whatever, you don't get anywhere. And so just try it out, you learn, you progress, you get better the next time, but you definitely will have grown and learned something in the process. You earlier mentioned sourcing as a potential opportunity,
Yes.
right? And how that is a value bucket, I think, that a lot of companies don't make enough use of. That's another area where we've built a dedicated kind of product offering around kind of mid to tail spend sourcing, where instead of a human having to go out and scour the market for potential vendors and reach out to suppliers and run an RFI and pre-qualify them, those are great
Right.
tasks for AI as well. We don't really
Mhm.
touch highly complex, you know, engineer, design to build like
Right. Right.
co-creation project. But there's so many categories that people just don't have the time to tackle.
It's true.
Why don't we just leverage AI to run more sourcing events and therefore save some spend? And so we the agent that we've built can go and run a whole vendor research process, draft an RFI, reach out to suppliers in natural language. They don't have to log into anything, get some offers on the table, and then we always involve our customer's team for the kind of negotiation, final decision making. But it's all the legwork up front of getting options on the table, reaching out, following up, doing some of the basic grunt work. That's where you can just
Yeah.
it really gives capacity to the team, and we've seen pretty exceptional spend savings. I mean, we recently crunched the numbers, and across the customers where we have done sourcing, on average we found more than $1 million in savings in the first couple of months, and that's just by just running more sourcing events, and that's amazing, and that can then more than pay for any productivity benefits of an AI solution.
So I think my estimate would be that some of your product groupings, like you said, that aren't the complex ones where it's more person-to-person interaction. But if, it's a more standard type of an item, where there's probably multiple suppliers out there all over the world, it sounds like you could set up, you'd have to give you give AI some feedback about what you're looking for, but basically it could go out there and capture some suggestions, it sounds like, and then, run things by you and then run
Yeah,
the
exactly.
vetting.
And
Is that what you're
even
saying?
engage with vendors, at scale for you in natural language to get options on the table. And so it'll take in a request, it will check back with you, it will actually ask questions and see, hey, you didn't give me this information that I need to go and do my research. And then it will go and do a bunch of research, come back, it will shortlist suppliers, draft an RFI, reach out to vendors, and try and get as many kind of quotes on the table, information on the table, so that our customers team can then decide which vendors they would like to set up conversations with. And yeah, it's for commodity products, but can even be commodity services too, where we've seen significant savings,
That makes
document
sense. Yeah.
storage, those kind of you can clearly define requirements, and that's where
Right.
AI can be very helpful. And then even if we never touch sourcing with AI, if we just free your team and give them 100 hours back a week to go and do more strategic sourcing and have better vendor performance management conversations, that's also an enormous value pool, not just productivity. It's how does it help you with all of the other metrics you care about, be that spend, be that, of course, it's not always just about spend, finding better vendors, or, consolidating your vendor base, or all these there's so many other metrics that matter in a good supply chain, of course, but your team then has capacity to focus on those things.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So it sounds like it can do a lot of, it definitely do a lot of interesting tasks that will help with the, like you said, repetitive tasks. But the agentic side of it means that it can like take some actions based upon, it's not just calculating numbers and giving you those numbers. It can do something with it. It sounds like, these
Yeah,
days.
and that's really the new, I hate to use the word like new paradigm, but it really is a new world of software, where traditional software is very, rigid. It has certain features. Now, I mean, the way that we've architected our platform is just an entirely different way to think about how software can work. You know, at the core of it is an AI reasoning engine built for procurement decisions that
Yeah.
has triggers, pulls context, and decides what to do using tools it has access to, right? It is not almost like a tool in itself. It is a way to get work done.
And so just so that like folks can kind of understand a little bit more about it, is necessarily like, this is more of a generic question, but it could relate to your software certainly. But it seems like you would get a large language model of some kind, or you would build on some kind of like a base, I guess, right? And then you would build in expertise and I don't know, like if you call it AI code, or like
Yeah.
basically you're building on a AI base with some code so that you can then have the engine perform those types of tasks. Is that an accurate
A
understanding?
great
At
way to
least at
describe it. Exactly. Nobody in the application layer really builds their own foundation models. They cost hundreds of
right.
millions of dollars, billions of dollars these days. But what you can do is you build all these rails around it to feed the AI model the right information at the right time, with exactly the right prompts, and give it the access to the right tools. And then you give it the right instructions specific to a specific workflow, task, supplier, customer. And you need to serve it in very specific ways. You need to build the piping to give it the right information for the right task. And then the AI will formulate what to do and take the next action. And then, in addition to that, it's about that exception management, right? How do we make sure that important things have human in the loop, which is another entire kind of feature set that's required, right? How do we
Right. Right.
build a really incredible user experience specifically for supply chain and procurement teams that help them get through to-dos really quickly, that surface the right information that a buyer would need to see, that allow them to take actions really quickly and correspond with suppliers in a really easy way. And yeah, that's really how you rethink how software is built versus what people would have built 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh, actually, it's interesting because, like, in essence, PSYOP is more of a, like, there's so many elements to it. It's a little bit more, well, I wouldn't say it's more complex necessarily than, every topic has its complexities. But in essence, we've built an AI engine that helps to run PSYOP processes similar to what we were talking about. But, like, to your point, in our case, it's not at scale because there's tailoring that's required for various situations, but at the 80/20 is like a base. So it's interesting. I that's why I was wondering, if it was similar to that concept as to how it's built. That's interesting. I had another thought or another question, and I'm hoping I can remember what it was. Oh, the portals. So, like, I know several of our clients, you have like supplier portals, and they have customer portals, but basically, like these supplier portals, would it go? I assume your AI engine would go to the portals and, like, either put stuff there or take stuff from the portal or both directions. Is that inaccurate? Is that true, or how does that work?
Yeah, good question. So in many ways, a lot of what we're doing is in response to a lot of our customers having the problem of getting a lot of buy-in and usage out of their supplier portals, right? It's pretty hard, again, if you're not Walmart, to get your vendors to consistently update the information, use your supplier portal consistently. That's why these teams really live in email. If it were so easy, people could do it in the supplier portal today. And so in many ways, we actually want to get rid of this idea that people have to change how they work, right? We don't want people to, we don't need to change how the vendor interacts with you. We meet people where they're at and say, hey, we're going to take in whatever shape or form or channel people choose to communicate with us and don't require any change from the other party. When people do have a vendor portal, of course, we could, integrate with that. We can capture
and that's
some
what
of
I
that
was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, in a way, I think you're really saying, tell me if I'm right, but in a way, it could replace a supplier portal because it's going to do more than a portal. But on the other hand, like, I've worked with several clients, and it may happen more with customer portals, but it could go in either direction, I think. Like you said, if there's a larger company, they may just have a process and, like, they're just going to put it in the portal whether you like it or not. So what you're saying is, in this case, like, you may as well, AI can get it from wherever it is and then, take
That's right.
appropriate action.
And we don't force the vendor to have to change how they work or adopt anything. It's really totally native in whatever channel people already use.
Yeah. No, that's convenient. Well, interesting. Now, I guess we're almost out of time, but I would ask, as a wrap-up question, maybe two things. But do you see, like, what do you see as one of the, like, biggest watch outs that people should be thinking about? And then be thinking, while you're answering that, we'll talk about maybe one trend that's going on. But let's talk with a watch out first.
Watch out. Good question. One thing we've learned is that AI can be a scary topic for a lot of people, right? It's a big word. It's being thrown around a lot. I think that people worry what it means for them, rightly. And what we've seen across, all the companies we work with is that when management teams have, like, a really strong answer of how the purpose of why are we employing AI, like, we've never seen this be used as a way to create efficiency and reduce team sizes. In practice, what happens is these teams are already so underwater or short-staffed, but that message, I think, is really important. And the best teams that I get to work with put that front and center. They're like, hey, we as procurement supply chain are such a incredible value driver for the business if we have the capacity to do it, but we're getting bogged down. So let's leverage technology to our advantage and embrace it rather than be afraid of it, because our goal here really is to enable you and empower you and uplift procurement and supply chain to be the value driver it's supposed to be. And that's a message I can't carry into those organizations. It's really important for our champions and leadership teams to say that out loud themselves. So anybody here who's a manager or a leader, I think that's just a message to get ahead of that I think is really, really important to proactively address, which I think is great. In terms of trends, when we think about the capabilities of our platform today and what we want to be able to do in the future, there's so many interesting strands of thought, right? We are already experimenting with voice agents, and in the case of an urgent order, being able to call a vendor or 3PL to expedite something when email just won't do. And so it's the frontier of tool use that we can give agents to really capture even broader modalities of interacting in the real world. So I think that's a really interesting trend.
Very good. Well, it's been really interesting. I'm sure everyone has taken away a couple of ideas. A consulting mentor of mine says, if you improve 1% a day, then I think it's 30 days, you're twice as good. Or I forgot the number actually, but nevertheless, you can extrapolate your value really quickly if you just take away one idea from every conversation. So, well, thank you very much, Lorenz. It was great talking with you, and we appreciate you being on Supply Chain Chats. See you again soon.
Thank you very much for your time.